if you have your fantasy baseball cheat sheets from March, they're going to need some updating because we have some July risers, some summer camp risers, some players who have taken off since maybe the last time we placed them in our mock drafts. Got Rotoworld experts with me, DJ Short and Drew Silva. Let's go through some players here, guys. Drew, let's start with you. Who's a July riser for you?
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani comes to mind like immediately. Had Tommy John surgery back in October 2018 and was going to be eased back into pitching this year. Probably not taking the mound until sometime in May. May has passed, and the expectation is that he'll be a full two-way player again for the Angels come opening day 2.0, getting like one start per week and serving as the team's primary DH on the days he's not pitching. So probably like 10 starts, 150 to 160 plate appearances. You look at the numbers, Ohtani had a 3.31 ERA and an 11.0 K per nine over 10 starts during that rookie year in 2018 when he really burst onto the scene. That same year, he batted .312 with a 1015 OPS over 158 plate appearances. So that's the upside you're talking about here, a really unique talent to have in a weird season like this.
So I have Alberto Mondesi with the Royals. He was a question mark for the start of the season following left labrum surgery last October, but obviously the shutdown has given him extra time to rest and rehab. He should be good to go for the season without any restrictions, which is obviously good news. Mondesi has his flaws for sure. I mean, we saw that last year. He hit .263 with a .291 on base percentage, but he also went 43 for 50 in stolen base attempts in just 102 games. And compare that to 75 games in 2018, he stole 32 bases. So, if you were to project who's most likely to lead the league in steals this year, I think Mondesi's the guy.
Stolen bases seem secure. Starts, you don't know how many starts each pitcher is going to get. You have your eyes, Drew, on another guy out there.
Yeah, Mike Clevenger of the Indians is definitely a player who benefits from the delayed season. Needed surgery on February 14th to repair a partial meniscus tear in his left knee, but he's fully recovered now and really has been for a month. That surgery usually requires around 6 to 8 weeks of rest and rehab. So he should be built up to the same level as most other starting pitchers when the season begins. And we know he has the talent to be a top 10 fantasy starter when he's healthy. 2.71 ERA, 169 strikeouts in 126 innings last season, along with a 13-4 record in 21 starts for an Indians team that won 93 games, even though they missed the playoffs. I think they should be a contender during this 60-game season, and especially if Clevenger stays healthy and could be their ace.
Another pitcher here, James Paxton with the Yankees. Of course, he's always a durability risk, but actually was expected to miss the first month of the season after having back surgery in early February. But he's one of those players who the outlook has really changed during the shutdown here. Plenty of time to rehab. He's thrown a bunch of bullpen sessions. Now he's just going to go into camp with the Yankees like any other starter. And it's not just the injury thing. Like I said, he's been a durability risk throughout his career. We know the potential's sky high, but I don't think you've ever been able to count on him making 30 starts in a season. But this year, he just has to make maybe 12 starts. So I think it's worth the upside.
It does seem like a lot of pitchers are being helped by this late start. Are there any more out there, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, most of these players we're discussing are rising. We're calling them summer camp July risers because they're moving further and further away from injuries and or surgeries. And there's some of that with Jesus Luzardo of the A's, who battled a shoulder issue last year. But with him, and why I like him more now than before, is that it's about workload or not having to worry so much about workload given the shortened schedule. He only pitched 55 innings last year between the minors and majors because of that shoulder issue. So the concern in drafting him this spring was that the A's would probably have to limit him to like 110 to 120 innings. No one's going to throw 100 innings this year, or it's very doubtful. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. And Luzardo looked great this spring. He looked great during his first taste of MLB action last year. Has that high 90s fastball with tons of movement, excellent changeup, great slider, 22 years old, pitching left-handed. I think the sky's the limit if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, there's a lot of those workload type of guys that I think are going to change on your draft board. Maybe even someone like Brandon Woodruff, who didn't make it through a full season last year, Zach Gallen with the Diamondbacks, Julio Urias with the Dodgers. The Dodgers have always watched his innings carefully. They might still, but I think those guys are a lot more interesting now that the workload stuff doesn't really matter. But someone we can count on a big workload from, Justin Verlander. If you remember, he suffered a lat strain in early March. Was expected to begin the year on the injured list for that, but then he ended up undergoing right groin surgery later that month. He was actually facing a 6-week recovery from that, which would have sidelined him until May. So obviously the downtime has been, conveniently timed for him as far as that's concerned. I mean, who knows how the season's going to go? We keep saying around 12 starts is what we can expect. So small samples to be sure, maybe some funky ERAs, but I think the things you're going to want to look for this year: volume, strikeouts, and wins, and Verlander remains one of the best options out there.
It's been an interesting year for Justin Verlander for a lot of reasons, rising up here in July. So last player for both of you, those are a lot of pitchers. Are there any hitters out there that maybe have improved their stock over the last 3 months?
Yeah, I really like Sam Hilliard of the Rockies. I liked him this spring, but even more so now because another element of this shortened season is that some players are going to opt out. They don't want to play in the environment of a pandemic. Ian Desmond is one of those, who was Hilliard's teammate in Colorado. And Desmond not being there opens up even more of an opportunity for Hilliard to grab an everyday role right out of the gate. I think the universal DH helps Hilliard's situation too, just more at bats to go around. Cheap way to get a little Coors Field effect on your roster, because he was going late in drafts or even undrafted this spring. And I think that'll still be the case for people who maybe aren't paying close attention. Crazy numbers last year at the AAA level: 35 homers, 22 stolen bases in 126 games, had an OPS over 1,000 in his first 87 major league plate appearances. Is he as good as those numbers suggest? Probably not, but it won't cost you much to find out if he is.
Another hitter for me, Willie Calhoun with the Rangers, had a nice little breakout last year. It felt like forever we were waiting for that, but 21 homers, 848 OPS in just 83 games. He was projected to be a really solid mid-round pick this year in fantasy drafts, but he suffered a fractured jaw when he was hit in the face by a pitch back on March 8th, had a steel plate inserted in his jaw. It was a really scary thing. And Calhoun almost certainly would have been sidelined for a bit if the season started on time, but he's had extra time to recover during the shutdown. We should also mention that he's progressed really quickly, should be a full participant in advance of the season. So I'm still hoping for a breakout here. We don't really know how the new Rangers ballpark is going to play, but I still think he's pretty exciting.
Some players to keep an eye on. Thanks, guys.